Happy New Year, everybody. I think that audio going a little weird out there. Hey, it's 2025. Good to see you. Happy New Year. How everybody's doing? Hope you all had a great holiday season, but here we are, 2025, 2 weeks off, and let's kick off the new year. Hopefully some new opportunities, and we start to change the sentiment knowing it's 2 weeks and this new administration finally has entered into office. So let's welcome in our co-host as usual. Happy New Year to Mr. Anthony Varell. How are you?
How's it going? It was good. It's been a while. I think we took 2 weeks off. Now we're back.
Yes. I'm happy to announce today to everybody that I will not be running for Prime Minister of Canada. Crazy news up in Canada today with the Prime Minister.
That is that's unfortunate.
No, it's not. Actually, it's unfortunate what's happened to the country, but yeah, it's time for change, and thank God that has finally happened. But a lot of Canadians, I think, around the nation are happy to see this finally move on. But now comes
there's an outpouring. There's an outpouring all over social media today about how many people are happy that Trudeau's stepping down.
Yeah, so I think there's a 60-day window where they have to find out who the new Liberal lead candidate will be from the 15th of January to the 15th of March. Nice. No bills will be passed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And yeah, you know what? With the new administration, will things change with this excise tax related to what we talk about, which is cannabis? But I'm not sure if you saw my.
That would be nice.
Yeah. I loved how Michael DeJulio, I don't know if you got a chance to see, or if any of you out there that are watching right now got a chance to see that panel interview that we did over the holidays, but guy was amazing, was straight on, told it like it was. One point he was saying, man, it's so tough to do business here in Canada. It's, at some point, it's almost like the end of August before you stop working for the government can actually start making some money within the actual country itself. And isn't that the truth with how much tax they continue to pay? But yeah. Anyways, saw you last week in Fort Lauderdale. I booked a last-minute trip. How's the weather down there? It's I missed the weather already, but Fort Lauderdale alive and well.
Cold front. There's been a cold front actually since you left. It's been a low of 50 and a high of 70, 75. So the weather's been nice.
Really?
The weather's been real nice. Yeah.
Well, we saw a little bit of price action. Tax loss selling season officially ended last week, and we saw some stocks move a little bit. I think Trulieve is actually retracted. I think what'd they end up finishing today? Down what?
Trulieve finished the day down 6%. It hit, I think, 608, and then it's been kind of floating down since. It's now about 20% off of that, sitting at 533 US.
Yeah. Eric, welcome back, guys. I hope you had a great holiday season. I hope you did as well, my friend. Good to see you. Idaho writes, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, Justin. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of Canadians that are preaching that sentiment here across the country. But all in all, here we are. We've talked a lot about this fresh new beginning, and let's see where this goes. There's lots to talk about because there was some interesting news that developed. So let's begin TDR, Traded Black Podcast, into the wire. And the first thing we'll bring up is some positive news for the industry. Were news late last week involving the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, where two Democratic leaders, co-chairs, Republican Earl Blumenauer, which we all know very well and appreciate here in the cannabis industry, and Barbara Lee from California, they're retiring, and taking their places of representatives are pro-cannabis representatives, Dina Titus from Nevada and Ilhan Omar, from a Democrat from Minnesota, who, as I said, Anthony, wants to advance cannabis reform. So tell us a little bit about, yes, we know the names of who's retiring, the two new names that are coming in, and what are some notable moments, I guess, for you that stood out to you as to why it defines that they're pro-cannabis?
Yeah, so the two Democrat members, as you said, joining are Dina Titus from Nevada, as well as Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. Dina Titus is pretty much a home run as far as it relates to cannabis. She's for rescheduling. She's for banking. She's for states' rights. She supported adult use in Nevada. She also came to the aid of the industry when the Cole memo was repealed by Jeff Sessions. She was part of the penning of the letter to create transparency around the rescheduling process as it relates to the Biden administration. She has no chink in her armor. Like, she is who should be representing the industry. Ilhan Omar, not so much. I mean, I'm not a big fan of hers. Some things that she said politically, that's un-American. I mean, you could kind of see her as a poison pill. She is for federal legalization, but she's for federal legalization on the auspices of, let's say, the DEI argument and the social equity argument around the space. Politically, I don't know if Republicans are going to want to do business with her or really transact with her. It'll obviously be to be determined. Brian Mast and Dave Joyce also have retained their positions within the Cannabis Caucus. So, I mean, they are champions of the industry and they're friends of the sector. But yeah, Dina Titus is an absolute home run. And just for people that don't know, I mean, the actual mission statement for the Cannabis Caucus is the Congressional Cannabis Caucus seeks to harmonize federal laws that conflict with various state laws that permit medical and recreational cannabis. So there's a lot of contradiction there right now, as federal laws couldn't be farther from state cannabis laws. But I have faith that the voice and the subject matter expertise that, let's say, Representative Titus has and brings to the Cannabis Caucus does give me a lot of hope for things that could happen, or at least people with a fundamental understanding of what the industry needs are at the helm with her joining the caucus.
It's amazing how many different levels of government are just not on the same page. But again, when you stop and look at what's going on the states level versus federal and the disconnect is pertaining to this industry, I can't think of another example as to how the two are just so far apart and so not in line. But when it comes to this caucus, like you've mentioned some names that we've talked about and highlighted quite a bit over the past 6, 7, 8 months since our first trip to Washington. How influential is this caucus, do you think, when it comes to speaking to this new Trump administration and really what we all know what their goal and initiative is, but how influential will they be when it comes to advancing cannabis when speaking to the Trump administration, do you think?
I don't think they're going to be that influential. I mean, I think an important data point is that Representative Mast is actually the representative from Donald Trump's district in Florida. Dave Joyce, obviously, is a very influential politician from Ohio. And like I had said, Dina Titus, Representative Titus, is also a very well-to-do thought leader when it comes to the ins and outs of the cannabis industry. That being said, I think the Cannabis Caucus is going on its 8th year now. We haven't seen anything happen federally, legislatively. The cannabis industry has been mired in just shit, if I'm speaking openly, for the last couple of years. So despite their best efforts, we have yet to see anything actually get done. So I really don't think it's advantageous to give a lot of weight to the influence that this potential caucus could have within the halls of the Congress.
Yeah, and I think that on paper makes sense. But I also think too that, you've got all the right people in the right places and they've got 8 years of experience. Now it comes down to whether or not this administration thinks or looks at things differently pertaining to the space in comparison to previous administrations. So, I think
the administration is going to do what the administration wants to do. I don't think anyone's going to influence Donald Trump to go one way or the other on cannabis. Yeah. We saw a statement. We've talked to people within the transition team. We've seen his appointments. They've alluded to they're going to get stuff done as it relates to reform. I don't think anybody, like I just said, I don't think anyone is going to influence Trump's views on getting anything done for the cannabis industry. I think he's going to come to those conclusions by himself. I think he's going to have to come to the conclusion that it's going to be something he's going to gain political capital from, and something that he can steal from the Democrats as far as a win goes. Anything short of that, I don't think is going to move the needle.
Gary writes, Texas seems to be clamping down on hemp. Do you all think this could help get MJ and hemp get together finally? It's a pretty broad question. One could only assume and hope, as Boris has kind of alluded to in the past that he's been on with us. But what's your thoughts on that?
I think the ban that's going on in Texas right now, as much as I do agree with it in certain ways as getting synthetics and getting the industry cleaned up, it's also doing more harm than good, as it's taking the actual plant out of people's hands that need it in Texas, as they do not have a medical program currently in the state, and it is a blanket ban. I think that we're going to see some modulating of that ban in the coming months.
Yeah. Eric writes, Texas not going to allow MJ. Hemp will be okay. I think you're bang on with that.
I tend to agree with Eric. I think you're going to see low dose hemp, and you're going to see certain forms of it that are allowed in the state of Texas. I don't think the blanket ban is going to stand.
Yep. Deborah Norenberg writes, I think it's important to note that it wasn't until Trump vocalized his stance on cannabis back in September of 2024 that he took the lead ahead of Harris. Coincidence? I don't think so. Yep. You're right there. Why haven't any MJ companies donated money to Trump inauguration? Crypto did. I think you're about to. I think from what we heard when we were at MJ Biz a month ago, that there's going to be some major players in the cannabis space that are going to be cutting checks towards this. So just hold on tight. Don't jump to conclusions yet, but I think there's a lot of things coming. That's for sure. But anything else you want to add there? I'm just looking at a few other comments. As far as some of the notable names that are being rumored for prime minister, I'm actually just reaching out to the communications director for the premier of Ontario. He's a good friend of mine. I'll reach out to him when Anthony and Brady come on here in a bit and find out some of the short list of names that could be rumored for prime minister of Canada, besides the obvious with Christina Freeland. But here we are, Into the Wire, TDR, Traded Black Podcast, Monday, January 6th. First live stream of 2025. We've talked about this year, how it can't come fast enough. Is it 2 weeks from today that he's inaugurated? January 20th, correct?
January 20th. Yeah, 2 weeks from today.
A lot of people will be watching that. So let's get on with this. All right, next up, headline number 2. And really a company that was probably everybody's favorite Q4 cannabis stock, Agrify, where they made news today, where they announced that they're trading their vertical farm for boozy-free buzz. They plan to sell their entire cultivation business to CP Acquisitions, and with it, it's going to eliminate roughly $7 million in convertible notes and opening up the floodgates to their hemp-derived THC beverage strategy. Anthony, here we go. We talk a lot about 2025 being the year of hemp-derived beverages. And it's off and running, I think, for this company, and really a lot of strategy that's when you factor in GTI and really why they bought this company out in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot to like about GTI and the way that they've been maneuvering. I mean, this Agrify acquisition, the Barstool partnership, a lot of things are going in GTI's favor strategically. I mean, the writing's on the wall for what they want to do. The potential Sam Adams relationship with Ben Kovler. They're lining up all of the dominoes in the right way. That being said, Agrify, as it stands today, fully diluted, is around a $400 million valuation. It's rich. They acquired Senorita for $2 million, which gives you kind of a certain degree of what kind of revenue they could be doing. Agrify's got a pretty lofty valuation to grow into. This is probably going to be a vehicle that you see other brands acquired and put into as some sort of maybe portfolio play. I could be very wrong there. This could also be a shell that they amalgamate GTI into if uplisting is allowed down the road. There's a lot that we know. There's also a lot to be determined. But this is good to see that they stripped out the vertical farming assets that no one really ever believed were viable within the business, and that eliminated $7 million in converts out of the cap stack as well. So yeah, this is a great step for Agrify. It's another step in the right direction for GTI and the business that Ben Kovler now is the CEO of, being Agrify. And we're going to have to wait to see what all transpires.
Stephen Plord writes, why is GTI not trading well? They didn't have much of a run. It was pretty much flat. I know the one tweet you pushed out late last week was Terrace and Trulieve being up 15% on the day while GTI has been flat. You care to elaborate or at least comment on that?
I have no idea why. I have no idea why GTI is not trading well. I don't have a crystal ball. To be completely honest, I mean, liquidity is not there in the sector right now.
I hear you.
People aren't buying. So I mean, that's that. There's no fundamental reason or any other reason that I could make up as to why GTI is not trading well currently.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if you and I are having this conversation again in 12 months from now. When you factor in GTI buying Agrify, the Barstool angle, we talk about hemp-derived beverages being a major focal point here in 2025 for many, many companies. How much do you think this is actually known in mainstream pop culture, consumer trends like behaviors, and how people will change over these next 12 months? This is a big growth year for this overall space pertaining to this specific industry. But how much do you think advances here in the next 12 months?
It could advance. It could also retract.
You think
We
so?
could get some. Yeah, I mean, you have got state level bans that are going on all over the place. The state level bans in Texas would from my understanding, would nullify the sale of beverages within the state. I don't think that you're going to have the next 12 months elapse, and you don't see some sort of punitive measure by Ron DeSantis as it relates to hemp in the state of Florida. They could have carve outs for beverages. They could have carve outs for low dose edibles. I think that the hemp derived beverages are one of the most explosive form factors for cannabis in years. I think they're going to be a mainstream form factor for getting cannabis in the hands of consumers.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of opacity around the next 12 months. Granted, the Farm Bill has been extended for 12 months, but I don't think it's truly known what's going to happen on a state by state basis as it relates to, let's say, just hemp derived intoxicating products as a whole. It's very early in the year, as we all know.
All right. We got Brady Cobb coming up in just a moment, CEO of Sunburn Cannabis. Last thing I'll bring up real quick, Canopy USA, they announced a new president, first ever president, actually, for Canopy USA, Brooks Jorgensen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name. Do you know much about him? That was an announcement that was
I actually do. It was quite an interesting announcement. He is coming with an immense background in beverage, working for Southern Wine and Spirits, also Moet Hennessy. Also, he was part of Kiva's distribution company that spun out from the brand Kiva. Kiva is still a privately held company. I wouldn't be surprised to see Canopy and somebody with the background in Southern Wine and Spirits, as well as the Constellation guys. What they did in alcohol, they're going to do in cannabis. They built portfolios of brands. If I made a wish list of brands that I wanted to buy today in cannabis, Kiva would be a top 5 brand.
Yeah, you're right.
That I was going to buy. That's already in the hemp space. They're already dominating the cannabis space. They've got good market share. Not saying this is going to happen or that this is anywhere near the realm of possibility, but if they were going to buy another brand as it relates to Canopy USA to make complementary to Wana, Jetty, as well as Acreage, Kiva could be that piece that they add to gain market share in several other categories. Kiva is also a premium brand.
Yeah.
That Southern Wine and Spirits, Constellation, Moet Hennessy, they align with premium brands.
We talked about that last month with you, Seth Yakutin, and I, just about the private side and some of the brands that are flourishing, but keep your eyes peeled on that. That's for sure. All right, let's now move into our second segment, and it's our featured interview here on a Monday, January 6th, and welcome in the CEO of Sunburn Cannabis and a friend of the show, Mr. Brady Cobb. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. How are things going?
Good. How's the holidays? I was in your neck of the woods last week. I think you were out west, but what a great place that you guys live. You are one lucky bastards to be living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
It doesn't suck, man. It's a great place to live. This was much needed respite with some family, and got a good trip out west. Got a couple really good powder days with my family on the mountain. So
nice.
Back grinding, back to reality, and back to this in 2025. So here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, we now enter into a new year, 2025. So Brady, like with your experience, you know, yes, being in this industry for a long time, a lawyer, an attorney, your work in Washington, a new administration comes into office in 2 weeks from now. We're hearing a lot of great things from the economic angle, but from the conversations and networks that you have, how should we view this new administration when it comes to advancing and forwarding cannabis here in 2025 in your view?
I mean, I think everyone in this space, at least the smarter investors in the space, have learned that, you know, you can do anything. So I hope everyone has, you know, not going to go down the path of, you know, like everybody did in 2020 when Joe Biden was going to, you know, legalize cannabis and everything was going to be great. You have to take everything in a much craft carrier. But if you look at the breadcrumbs and you kind of look around at what's happening, you know, RFK looking to potentially have the votes to get confirmed. RFK would be the most pro FDA commissioner for cannabis that we've ever. So there's you know, Pam Bondi, I believe, is going to be a good pick for cannabis reform at DOJ if she gets confirmed. It looks like she will have the votes to get confirmed. So
yeah,
I think a different approach. I think you're going to see, the president taking a firm stance this time around in the cannabis on the cannabis reform issue on the campaign trail. It's not just he made it a pretty serious issue, especially here in Florida with his endorsement of Amendment 3. It obviously, as we know, didn't carry the day for us on Amendment 3, but it certainly was a big departure from the last time where he didn't say much about it. So cannabis is a tier 1 issue. And I do think you're going to see action. I just, I can't give you any real timelines on when I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, of course.
I do think rescheduling being ongoing in the press, as well as safer banking, and now we've obviously got legislative control. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I've still engineered our own business to be one that doesn't need it to happen, because
Of course,
that's always been something I've just been focused on. Government's going to do what they're going to do. We've got a lot of bigger ticket items ahead of us as far as policy issues, but I do think this is a net positive. Both, it's obviously going to have the broader markets have reacted very favorably, which, even though we're uncorrelated at cannabis, it tends to bleed towards, a better macro market is a better micro market for us. But I do think we're going to see a real move on cannabis reform this cycle federally, the state level. At the beginning of the end of your last segment, I do think you're going to see kind of varying responses to this hemp side of the world from the various different state legislatures. Each one's going to be different. I do agree. I think DeSantis is going to double back and to oppose 3. He's going to cram it right up their ass. Is what I think you're going to see in Florida in the upcoming bill.
What a job! What a job!
Yeah, what a job. He's right. I don't even.
I'll take your money for now.
The hemp market was. Yeah, I'll take your money for now. This whole rift between the hemp and legal THC markets it's just this relatively nascent market that's coming up, and we're shooting arrows in.
Yeah. Oh, I think we lost him for a second there. You're on mute.
We lost your sound, Brady.
I don't know. That's just me. Yeah, that's just me. It just seems kind of silly to be shooting arrows at ourselves when we have a lot bigger enemies shooting arrows at us. Alcohol's obviously getting more. I think you're going to see tobacco continue to get more aggressive in the space. So it's kind of a time. It's a very interesting time.
So you think
how are you looking at the Florida market for 2025? I mean, we just saw that the granting of the incremental licenses came 2 weeks after DeSantis went on his warpath against Amendment 3. We saw some of the larger cultivators already start to build out more canopy in anticipation of Amendment 3. How are you looking at the market for 2025?
It's still the largest medical market in the world, so we're still very bullish on Florida. We're going to add cultivation on to continue. If you saw last week's OMMU report, did 21 million milligrams out of 16 stores. There was companies that had over 50 stores that did sub 30. So we still believe we have a great brand and growth vehicle, and we're going to continue to attack where we don't sacrifice brand health. I think there's pain coming for the state of Florida. I think you're already starting to see it. Curaleaf has been 60% off a whole month of December. They came into January at 40% off. This overbuilt cultivation ahead of Amendment 3, I think you're going to see people starting to have to pay those tabs. So you're going to see products start to move at, price compression's already showing up. So we're going to go a little bit of one of those cycles, because there was a tremendous amount of cultivation that was added in the run up to Amendment 3, and there's just not the demand without Amendment 3 passing. So you're going to see a little bit of pain. We didn't spend any money ahead of Amendment 3 capex for expansion. So that was a get the business to cash flow positive, hold, and then see what happens, as opposed to spending a bunch betting that it would happen. Because it's when you're in a vertical market that has in the case of crop loss, you don't have a lot of levers to move that product. And the last thing you want to do is be choking on inventory, because the only way to move it is price. Once you start discounting, it's a very hard habit to get out of. Like I said, Curaleaf % off for 75% of December, and they started off January with 40% off.
Wow.
Store-wide.
So I guess looking at the market, I mean, for those that don't know, I know that you started in the cannabis industry on the lobbying side. How do you see Florida transitioning into an adult use market? Do you see it kind of dead until, let's say, 2028 when we can get it on a ballot initiative again? Or do you think we can get, is there a potential to get something done legislatively?
I don't think there's any potential to get something done legislatively. And I say that as a former, state lobbyist. I think it's going to be potential, but I'd put that at lottery ticket potential, just being honest.
Okay. Yeah.
Our legislature is not keen on cannabis yet. I think you'll see a hemp bill, that legalization bill. Now, look, the governor's no friend to it. I think you may see the opportunity for something in 2026 when we get a new governor, depending on who that new gubernatorial candidate is. If the governor Republican supermajority since the late 80s, when my former boss, former Senate President Jim Scott ushered in the Republican supermajority. Since then, it's been largely a Republican-dominated legislature. Governor and new governor in 26 decides that cannabis, full rec market in cannabis is a good idea and something that they want to take on, then maybe we got a shot. Absent that, I don't see it. And you also got to on the ballot in a non-presidential year doesn't have a very good track record in Florida. That's actually when we tried to do it in 14. Our medical amendment went through in 14. We missed by 1.6%. So turnout's oftentimes too low to get a constitutional amendment, get enough votes out there to get it across the board in a non-presidential election. So I really think it is 28.
Yeah.
But
wow. Well, when you look at like we were
it's still a massive market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were in Vegas a month ago for the conference, and we did hear that the big MSOs are going to be actually start paying some pretty hefty checks to lobbying to get the messaging through to the appropriate people for this industry. Have you heard anything like that? Like, how important? Because when I hear you talk about Florida, these are some concerning times.
I had some great conversations with. I think everyone's woken up and realized this. Everyone creates their own industry association to lobby DC is a waste of fucking time. I always got accused of being a lone wolf. So join one, the NCR or the U.S. Cannabis Council or this one or that one. Look, we are a flea on a dog's ass in Washington. The companies that we're trying to affect change through have been right years. And here we are showing up with 3 associations that are grossly underfunded. We can't even align through the last 4 or 5 years on what the issues look like. I mean, just look at safe banking. That should have been a fucking layup.
I know.
You're fighting over social equity, which only gets there if you actually get it passed to actually have access to capital to fund the social equity. I mean, it's. Correct. I felt like I was Will Ferrell, and I'd be up there in these meetings. And everyone's yelling at me about we got to include social equity. I'm like, where's the money coming from? Because if you don't get this passed, there is no money. So
right.
I did have a great chat with my friend George Archos at Verano, who's I'm all in to help and lean in, because there is actually going to be, hey, we got to go create a proper super PAC, and we got to go get engaged, and actually everyone's got to write real checks, and we got to have real meaningful goals.
Yeah.
That Pixie does, but in reality, it is. If anything, the state of New York proved that.
Yeah, they did.
So it doesn't.
We're losing you, but your audio's cutting out.
So that's that. I do think you're going to see a massive push here because it's going to be based on survival.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. We all know that we're in a time now with this administration. It's the economic angle. I did have some conversations last month as well. And some of the approaches that some of these firms that are thinking is, let's stop thinking about the old traditional lobbying efforts and let's go after like certain states and having town halls to go after the constituents, which I think is actually a really smart idea. But, what kind of messaging do you think would be the right messaging to get through to these Washington people? Is it to go into these individual states and to talk to these individual people, like within your own state, your constituents, to like raise more awareness towards it? Like, what would be your approach? Cutting out
DC
there.
so far can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
That I think that's been done very well. Got me? Hold on. Let me walk this way. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get out of my car.
Thanks, sir.
If there's one thing that's happened up there in 14, despite our fractionalized, associations, is staff has been educated in a real way, which is critically important. So that's a big deal. And messaging wise, we have to align on what the end goal is, I think, is step one. Step two is then we got to get the staff and members to understand that this is not a bunch of hippies in a van, selling weed. Place that is safe and legal, and that they can, most importantly, generate tax revenue from. You get the government to rely on your tax revenue, and your industry set for life.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we have to demonstrate that just hasn't happened in a real way. It's been a muddled message. Get us safe banking, but also give us all these other, social equity and social justice type things that Republicans aren't going to buy. And then it turned into what should have been a partisan battle with, Chuck Schumer laying down in front of it, Mitch McConnell calling his bluff, and then no one ever actually fighting for it. So it's the messaging's been done. Now we got to align on what the policy goals are, and then we got to do the most real checks and get in real rooms.
Yeah,
that's real.
Yep. Well said. Well, let's hope obviously this starts to get underway real fast, because as you said, the new administration begins in 2 weeks from today. And as much as it's a brand new year, things are about to change in a hurry. And this is what I keep telling people. And I know a lot of people are frustrated because these stocks have hit 52-week lows, obviously, since election night and what happened in Florida. And some people say, I give you guys credit for doing this channel every single day. We wouldn't be here, obviously, if we didn't think there was, brighter days on the horizon. I don't want to say everything's all peachy right now, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But the most important thing I want to convey here today, and from what you're saying too, is people are prepared to get to work, correct?
People are prepared to get to work, and I think we're going to have an administration that's incredibly supportive of it, despite, I've been saying it for a long time. I think the Trump administration will be the administration form. I think you're going to see a continual growth market. I mean, you look at all the studies that have come out over the last couple of weeks, a lot of which you guys have retweeted, where, you see the alcohol use declining, Surgeon General's negative report on alcohol, on the benefits of cannabis. So the breadcrumbs are all out there. You got to have the stomach. You got to choose wisely. I mean, when you see, like I heard you guys talking about GTI, I've been a buyer. When they get, when they're down where they are, it's going to change. You got to still believe in the thesis. You can't get caught up in the noise. Not all companies are created equal, but the space itself is our competitors are paying attention. You don't see alcohol executives flooding into cannabis because they think they're looking for a new job. Yeah. There's a reason all that is happening. Yeah. So you don't see all of these types of moves happening. You don't see, GTI did what they did with Agrify, but for when the moment happens. Yeah. So, that's just, again, I'm reading tea leaves, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of moves being made, and I think the Trump administration is going to be a lot more positive for what we all want to. It's just, good news is we're in a market that's wait and see. Yeah. Well, let's hope that is the case. Listen, I'm voting Cafe Europa as the best Italian restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. What do you got? It's good. It's good. And you can't go wrong with some meatballs and salad at the bar at Martorano's either, if you want to watch a shit show.
Correct.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Correct.
Got the tour. I didn't realize Nick Nolte's got a place. Nick Nolte's got a place down there. That's a pretty big place he's got. But listen, if you're doing that Tortuga sponsorship, have you been around him? You know him personally? Yeah, I've seen him out a few times. Interesting cat. Well, hopefully you're at that Tortuga event again in April. We got to do that and do that podcast this year. But good seeing you. Happy New Year. Tell the family we say hi, okay? Thanks, guys. All right.
Thanks, Brady.
Well, I think that's what, it was good the way he kind of outlined, like, what would be your strategy and plan, heading into 2025. And I think he pretty much, like, what is the common end goal right now? That's just common sense, right?
I mean, he's correct, but at the same time, like, you want to, his main, or not his main, but I think the most poignant thing he said is you need the government to rely on your tax dollars.
There's the sell line right there.
But, and this is a big but, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, the cannabis industry right now, let's say, is $30 billion.
Okay.
How much tax revenue is the cannabis industry really generating off of that? Let's say even with 280 included, and I'm just using a back of the napkin math, 30%. You really think Washington cares about $10 billion in revenue? That is smaller than a flea on a dog's ass, as the analogy is that Brady alluded to. I'm not trying to be cynical here, but $10 billion to the United States government, they don't care about. That is smaller than a rounding error.
So at its full potential, let's say they fully descheduled cannabis across the country. What's this industry forecasted to become? How big?
Descheduling doesn't increase access to the plant whatsoever. So descheduling cannabis.
Deschedule. Fully federally legalized adult use medical.
Federally, well, that's what you're saying. These are all conflicting. So if they descheduled on a federal level, you would still have state level mandates that are going to allow medical or recreational. So it would still be left to the states. It would just be descheduled on a federal level. I'm not sure what the TAM would be as far as what it could grow to. I would have to assume double or triple.
Yeah,
but that is also assuming that states bring those programs online, because it still would stick to states' rights. If it's one thing that has been said time and time again, Donald Trump is a states' rights absolutionist. Donald Trump is not going to legalize cannabis. I don't think Donald Trump is going to legalize or deschedule cannabis, period, in the next 4 years. But under his guise, it is going to continue to be left to the states.
Here's the realistic goal: rescheduling and some sort of legislation, whatever that wording is going to be, about these American companies listing on senior exchanges. That to me is short-term, realistic probabilities that could happen in 2025. Anything else outside of that, like you said, federal legalization or adult use, like he's not going to put his name attached to that. The medical side is because of his admiration and close connection, obviously, with veterans. And I just don't think he's a person that he's never drank, he's never smoked his entire life. And I don't think he wants to get his name attached to that sort of thing. But he also understands the economic angle that it could bring. And with that, I think that his sort of cop-out would be let the states make their own decisions. And at the same time, let's reschedule it and let's look at research we can provide for our veterans.
All the man cares about is what people think about him. That's it. It's a very simple calculus with Donald Trump. He's a egomaniac narcissist. Is legalizing or is furthering cannabis reform going to A, allow him to say that he's created jobs, B, allow him to say that he's furthered business, and C, does it gain him political capital in the eyes of people? If those boxes are checked off, I'd be willing to bet that he's going to do something about the industry. But he doesn't care about cannabis. He doesn't care at all about cannabis. He probably hates cannabis, to be completely honest.
Agreed.
If we're just being real. But at the same time, would he let his disdain for, let's say, drugs outweigh the political capital and the notoriety that he could gain for doing something? Absolutely not. If he can sit there and sign it, you ever see how happy he gets when he signs an executive order?
I know.
Like that is love that he's demonstrating when he's doing that kind of shit. If he can do something that will make him look better in the eyes of people, he'll do it.
I know. You ever see the way he holds his pen? It's like a real effort, the way he signs his name.
I've never seen anyone happier than Donald Trump signing an executive order, or a piece of anything to that matter.
What is the approval rating right now for cannabis across the country in the U.S.? Is it 70%?
Over 70%.
Well, there you go. Somebody, if he cares about what people think of him, there's 7 out of 10 people. I'm sure he's leaning towards that. And but I thought Brady was spot on and some good information. Eric, always a pleasure having you on. trying to provide you with the network that we have. And I hope you found today's podcast along with everybody else hopeful. Irish, Happy New Year. Always great seeing you, my friend. Christopher Brady, good to see you as well. And Tie Grower, 2 weeks to go. You're right. Always good to have you on as well. Got a guy on here named Harry Toe. Yes, he said it multiple times. Leave it to the states. He likes money and power and publicity. It's good publicity.
Yeah.
Bingo on that.
Like I said, as long as people think positively about him, I think he'd do anything.
Deborah Norenberger again. Deborah writes, I'd like to see tech under the space of the cannabis industry to transform fibers to tax. How's that pronounced?
Oh, she's referring to hemp.
Gotcha.
That's actually what industrial hemp was meant to do in the Farm Bill.
Gotcha.
Create industries with textiles, hempcrete, building materials, and now it's just all going into intoxicating hemp products.
Channel writes that greetings from Germany, but the same shit happens here. First they legalize, and now the CDU party debates about delegalization. That's wild what's happening over there potentially in Germany here.
So if it's one thing, we bitch and moan about progress for the industry. If it's one thing that I think we should be appreciative of in this country, in the United States, we've never taken a step back.
True.
Industry-wise. Some could argue the repealing of the Cole memo by Jeff Sessions was a step back, might have stunted some growth and stunted some M&A activity, but we haven't seen states go medical or go rec and then go the other way.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened, and I don't foresee that happening in the United States. Germany is a completely different ordeal. They're getting in a new party that I believe is more conservative, and they're more averse, I guess, to Pillar 2 being implemented as it is.
Knock on wood for sure, Eric, when it comes to that. But yeah, same thing happened to Thailand as well. They took a step back, but
now they took a step forward. They're not taking the step back in Thailand.
Yeah. Eric, you write another good point, and I think every investor needs to hear this more and more. It is a long-term investment in an emerging industry. And this industry, as we all know, when it first took off was, give me a quick turn.
Let's be real. People were saying that in 2014.
We know a lot more now, though.
2025.
Okay, that wraps up today's show. Happy New Year, my friend. How's the wife feeling? You guys are what, T-minus 5 weeks now? 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks
out there
for your little girls on the way. So it's going to be a big year for you, to say the least. But listen, everybody that's watching here today, I understand. Look, the goal in the next little bit here is just to bring on as many thought leaders as possible. We're not here to pump this industry up. We want to learn, give you a better intake, or I should say, take on this industry and what's going on now, but more importantly, what's going to happen in these next few moments and months as we gear up and what's developing in Washington pertaining to that. Whether it's good or bad, we're going to break the news to you. So that's the goal here at the podcast. And hopefully we start to get some positive momentum. But we continue to do this day in and day out. And again, all of us here are happy to be your source of information. We got a lot of positive feedback over the holidays. So I just want to let everybody know, thank you very much for that. Anthony and I really appreciate it. And 2025, here we go. And let's hope we got a big year coming up. Everything looks promising in the right direction with a lot of people we've spoken to recently. So let's just get it to happen. And here we are, brand new here, brand new beginnings. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Make sure to subscribe to our baked in newsletter. Scan that QR code right on the template to the right-hand side. A lot of great information this morning. What were some of the key things, key takeaways from this morning's newsletter, Anthony?
It was basically a recap of the headlines. It was basically, I did a write-up on Dina Titus. It was the news of Trulieve expanding the select hemp beverage line. And then it was also on the Agrify deal from this morning. And there was actually a really good article in there from MJ Biz, from Chris Roberts, about 7 predictions for 2025. It was actually a pretty damn good article that he wrote with his takes on what those predictions could be.
What was number 1? Do you remember?
I don't remember. You can go read the article in the newsletter.
If you want to know, subscribe. All right. Listen, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll see you back here Wednesday. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Again, Happy New Year. I'll see you back here Wednesday. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Stay connected here. The latest Traded Black podcast. Another great episode under the belt. What'd y'all think? Do you like what we had to say? Please leave any comments below. And as usual, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. Check us out on Apple and Spotify. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to smash that like button, leave some comments, as I said before, and subscribe to our channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.